Phil Mickelson's caddy, 25 years of loyalty, and now he's signed with Bryson DeChambeau. That's what you came to find out, and I'm going to give you the answer. But here's the thing, the story you think you know, it's not even close to the full picture. Because a 25-year partnership doesn't end in a handshake and move on like nothing happened. That's 2.5 decades of trust, of battles, of wins and losses shared shoulder to shoulder. You don't just walk away from that and sign with someone else without consequences. So what's really going on here? Is this truly a betrayal? Or is there something deeper that nobody's talking about? And that $1.4 million deal, where did that number actually come from? Because if you think it's just about money, you're missing the real story. There are layers to this, and we're going to pull every single one of them apart. Here's what I believe. This isn't just a caddy switching bags. This is a moment that exposes something bigger about loyalty, ego, and the way golf's biggest names really see each other behind the cameras. But I want to know what you think. Is this betrayal, or is it just business? Drop your take in the comments. And if you want the full breakdown, not the headlines, the real story, make sure you're subscribed. Let's get into it. So let's start at the beginning. Not the very beginning, but the moment everything changed. 25 years. That's how long Bones Mackay stood next to Phil Mickelson, through 5 major championships, through 42 PGA Tour wins, through the highest highs and the lowest lows. They weren't just player and caddy. They were a partnership, a brotherhood, the kind of bond that's almost unheard of in modern golf. Then, in 2017, it ended. Suddenly, quietly, no public fight, no dramatic fallout, just a joint statement saying they decided to go their separate ways. And golf fans everywhere asked the same question. Why? The official answer was simple. It was mutual. It was time. But if you've followed this sport long enough, you know that's rarely the full story. There were whispers, rumors that the relationship had grown strained, that the trust wasn't what it used to be, that maybe, just maybe, there was more going on behind the scenes than either of them wanted to admit. And here's where it gets interesting. Bones didn't disappear from golf. He went to the broadcast booth, NBC, Golf Channel. He became a voice we all recognized. And for a while, that seemed like his new chapter. Then, in 2021, he returned to the bag, this time for Justin Thomas. Another top player, another chance to compete at the highest level. 4 years with Thomas, more wins, more memories. And then, just days ago, that ended too. Now here's the part that makes you stop and think. The same week Bones and Thomas part ways, the rumors start flying. Bryson DeChambeau, a $1.4 million deal. And suddenly, a 25-year partnership with Phil Mickelson feels like ancient history. But is any of it true? Or is this just the internet doing what the internet does best? One question kept eating at me. If Bones left Phil years ago, why is this only coming up now? And the answer changes everything. Let's go back to 2017 for a moment, because that's where this story really begins. That's the crack in the foundation. Everything that's happening now, it all traces back to that split. Phil and Bones were golf royalty. Think about what they accomplished together. 5 majors, 42 wins, millions of dollars in prize money. They were the gold standard for player-caddy relationships. When you thought of Phil Mickelson, you thought of Bones right there beside him. They were inseparable, a package deal. But relationships change, even the strongest ones. By 2017, something was off. The chemistry wasn't there anymore. The easy rapport that had carried them through decades of competition had faded. Some reports suggested that Bones was burned out. 25 years on the road will do that to anyone. Constant travel, constant pressure, constant scrutiny. Every shot analyzed, every decision questioned. Others hinted at something more personal. A growing distance between two men who used to finish each other's sentences. The kind of distance that doesn't happen overnight. It builds slowly, silently, until one day, you wake up and realize you're not as close as you used to be. Then came the surgery. Bones needed double knee replacement. Years of walking courses, carrying heavy bags, had taken their toll. He wasn't going to be able to do the job at the level he was used to. Not for a while, anyway. And that's when things got messy. Phil offered Bones a reduced role. Fewer events, less money, more time to recover. On the surface, it sounded reasonable, a compromise. But Bones saw it differently. He felt he was being pushed aside. After 25 years of loyalty, of sacrifice, of carrying that bag through every kind of weather and every kind of pressure, he was being offered less than what he had earned. Then came the money dispute. Reports surfaced that Bones was owed close to $900,000. Phil reportedly paid him $400,000. And the rest? It became the subject of a legal back and forth that neither of them wanted to discuss publicly. But those numbers didn't stay buried for long. They leaked. And once they did, the perception of their mutual split started to change. What happened next made that money dispute look like small talk, because Bones didn't just leave Phil, he left for something else entirely. From 2017 to 2021, Bones found a new rhythm: broadcasting, analyzing, watching the game from a different angle. It was comfortable. It was safe. No more walking 40 miles a week. No more carrying a 40-pound bag. No more sweating through every shot like it was life or death. But the itch never fully went away. The competition, the adrenaline, the feeling of being inside the ropes. That's not something you easily walk away from, especially when you've done it for as long as Bones did. So when Justin Thomas came calling in 2021, Bones answered. He was back where he belonged, on the course, with a contender. And together, they made noise. Wins at the PGA Championship, thrilling finishes, the kind of moments that remind you why you fell in love with this game in the first place. But now that chapter is over too. And the timing? It couldn't be more perfect, or more suspicious, depending on how you look at it. Because just as Bones becomes a free agent, Bryson DeChambeau is suddenly in the market for a new caddy, or at least that's the rumor. And the rumored price tag? $1.4 million. Here's the thing about that number. It doesn't just sound big. It sounds impossible, unless you know where it actually came from. So where did that $1.4 million figure really come from? Let's break it down. In professional golf, a caddy typically earns between 5 and 10% of a player's tournament winnings. A standard deal is around 7%. Then there's a weekly salary on top of that, usually somewhere between $2,000 and $3,000. Now let's do the math. Bryson DeChambeau has had some incredible seasons, big wins, big paydays, but a guaranteed $1.4 million? That would be one of the largest caddy deals in golf history. We're talking Tiger Woods and Steve Williams territory. So where did that number come from? It's not tied to any official announcement. There's no contract leaked, no press release, no confirmation from Bryson's camp or Bones's representatives. It's a number that appeared out of thin air, and somehow it became the headline. Here's the more likely explanation. Bryson once mentioned that if he won the FedEx Cup, which pays $15 million to the winner, he would give his caddy $1.5 million as a bonus. That's 10%, a standard payout. Fast forward to the 2024 U.S. Open. Bryson wins. His caddy at the time, Gregory Bodine, walks away with roughly $430,000. That's 10% of the $4.3 million winner's share. See the pattern? 10%. So the $1.4 million number, it's probably a misremembered percentage, or a rumor that grew legs. Or maybe it's the 10% of a championship pot that someone calculated and turned into a salary. But a guaranteed deal? There's no evidence of that anywhere. But wait, if there's no deal, why does every golf fan on the internet believe it? And what does Phil think about it? That's where the betrayal angle gets even more interesting, because Phil and Bryson have a history. Not a good one, not a bad one necessarily, but a complicated one. Let's set the scene. Phil Mickelson is old school. He plays by feel. He trusts his instincts. He relies on touch and creativity. He's the kind of player who can shape a shot that most wouldn't even attempt. Bryson DeChambeau is the exact opposite. He's data-driven, analytical. He approaches golf like a scientist solving a formula. Every club measured, every shot calculated, every angle optimized for distance and precision. The two of them represent two completely different philosophies of the game, and they haven't always seen eye to eye. There was that time Phil publicly supported the Koepka-DeChambeau rivalry, saying it was good for golf. But he also took some subtle jabs at Bryson's style. A joke here, a comment there. Nothing overtly hostile, but the tension was there. It was always there. Then came the moment that everyone remembers. During a practice round, Phil tried a sneaky tactic against Bryson, something that bent the rules, or at least pushed them to the limit. Bryson caught him, called him out, and the whole exchange became a talking point for weeks. That's not the kind of thing you forget, and it's not the kind of thing you forgive easily either. So if you're Phil, and you hear that your caddy of 25 years is going to work for the one guy who represents everything you're not, that's not just business. That's personal. But here's what makes this story truly wild. Bones hasn't signed with anyone. Not yet, at least. That's right. Despite the headlines, Despite the rumors, despite that $1.4 million figure floating around, Bones Mackay is still a free agent. He's not on Bryson's bag. He's not on anyone's bag, at least not officially. Bryson DeChambeau still has Gregory Bodine working for him. They've been together since 2023. They've won together. There's no indication that Bodine is going anywhere. So where did this whole story come from? It's a collision of timing and assumptions. Bones leaves Justin Thomas. That's real. That happened. Bryson is always looking for an edge. That's also true. He's one of the most competitive players in the world. Some journalist, or maybe just a fan, connected those two dots. And the internet did what the internet does best. It ran with it. A tweet became a post became a headline became a story, and suddenly, millions of golf fans are talking about a deal that doesn't exist. But here's the twist. Just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it won't. And if it does, everything about this story changes. Imagine this scenario. Bones and Bryson are perfect for each other. Think about it. Bryson needs someone who can read greens, someone who knows the pressure of a major, someone who won't be intimidated by his intensity. Bones has been there, done that, multiple times, and Bones needs a player who can win. He's proven he can take a talented player and help them reach the next level. Justin Thomas got better with Bones on his bag. There's no denying that. So if they end up together, it makes sense. It's logical. It's actually a great fit. But for Phil Mickelson, it would be devastating. Not because he needs Bones. He has his brother Tim on the bag now. That's worked out fine. But because it would confirm everything Phil might have been afraid of all along, that after 25 years, Bones chose someone else, someone who represents everything Phil isn't, someone who's younger, stronger, more driven in a different way. That's the emotional core of this story. It's not about the money. It's not about the caddy. It's about what it means when someone you trusted implicitly moves on to someone you might not even respect. So what's the verdict? Is it betrayal or just business? Let's break it down one more time. If Bones and Bryson do end up together, you have to ask yourself one question. What would loyalty look like in that situation? Bones gave Phil 25 years. That's a career, that's a lifetime in golf. He doesn't owe Phil anything, not anymore. They parted ways. They both moved on. Phil has his brother. Bones has his freedom. But golf fans don't see it that way. We see loyalty as forever. We see a partnership like that as sacred. When it ends, it feels wrong. When one side moves on, especially to someone like Bryson, it feels like a violation. That's the betrayal part. Now flip it around. Bones is a professional. He's been doing this for decades. He's got bills to pay, he's got a family to support, he's got his own legacy to protect. If Bryson offers him a great deal, why wouldn't he take it? Why would he turn down a chance to compete for more majors? Why would he let loyalty to a past partner hold him back? That's the business part. And honestly, both of those are valid. You can see it from either side. That's what makes this such a powerful story. Here's what I think, and I'd love to know if you agree. For me, this is not about betrayal. It's about the end of an era. 25 years is an eternity in sports. It's longer than most careers. It's longer than most marriages. The fact that Bones and Phil lasted that long is remarkable. Their breakup was going to be messy no matter what. What's happening now is just the aftermath, the echo of that original split. And it's loud. It's emotional. It's triggering for fans who remember those glory years. But it's also business, just like everything else in professional sports. The money, the contracts, the rivalries, it's all part of the machine. Bones moving on to Bryson, if it happens, isn't a betrayal. It's a next step, a new chapter. And honestly, it might be one of the best things that ever happened to both of them. Bryson gets a veteran who's seen everything. Bones gets a player who's hungry and fearless. And golf fans get a storyline that keeps us talking for years. So let's bring it all together. What do we actually know? We know Bones and Phil had a legendary partnership that ended in 2017. We know there was tension at the end. We know Bones moved to broadcasting, then came back with Justin Thomas. We know he just left Thomas. We know Bryson's caddy is still Gregory Bodine. We know there's been zero official confirmation of any deal between Bones and Bryson. What we don't know is whether that deal will ever happen, and if it does, when. But here's what I'll say. If you're a golf fan, this story matters because it touches on something universal. Trust, loyalty, moving on. It's not just about players and caddies. It's about relationships. It's about knowing when to hold on and when to let go. Phil Mickelson had his time with Bones. They made history together. That can never be taken away. But now, it's a new era, and Bones gets to decide what that looks like. Whether that's with Bryson or someone else, or back in the broadcast booth, that's his choice, and he's earned it. So was it a betrayal? I don't think so. I think it was a breakup, and breakups happen, even in golf, even to legends. But now that you know the full story, I want to ask you directly, do you think Bones made the right call leaving Phil when he did? And if he ends up with Bryson, is that crossing a line? Hit the subscribe button to stay in the loop, because trust me, we haven't seen the last of this story. Drop your take in the comments. I'll be reading them.